As members of the Global Farmer Network,
we believe agriculture is part of the solution,
not part of the problem.
We are committed to developing agricultural leaders
and sharing their stories across the globe.
We have one purpose:
to amplify the farmer's voice.
My voice.
Mi voz.
La mia voce.
My voice.
Welcome to Global Farmer Voices, a podcast by the Global Farmer Network where we invite farmers from around the world to share their stories and perspectives. Hello, I'm Delaney Howell, host of this podcast series. And this month, we are thrilled to be able to share and announce the official 25-year anniversary of the Global Farmer Network. To kick off this huge milestone year, we're sitting down with three of the founding members, Reg Clause, Bill Horan, and Tim Burrack. We talked to them about their involvement in the organization, why it was started, and the bright future they see ahead for the GFN. Although it looks much different from the organization that was started 25 years ago, there is a rich history that has built and shaped the Global Farmer Network. The five founding members, Reg Clause, Bill Horan, Tim Burrack, Bill Northey, and Craig Lang, came together in 2000 to create an organization dedicated to amplifying farmers' voices. Before we dive into how the GFN grew into what it is today, let's take a moment to reflect back on the roots of the Global Farmer Network.
Well, before that, we should go back beyond that, where we were all involved in leadership in commodity organizations in Iowa. So we all knew each other.
And the key to it was Mary. We'd all gotten to know her through her efforts at working when she worked for Governor Branstad in Ag. And so we knew her, she knew us, and she was the original phone call that said, because of the battle in Seattle when GATT met there in 1999, and all of us just took trade for granted, and suddenly you couldn't take trade for granted anymore with all the riots. We thought the world was on board to trade, and when we discovered they weren't, Mary said, something needs to be different here, and all of us were dependent upon trade, and so we said resoundingly yes.
Yeah. And the thing that threw us was the longshoremen who make their living with trade were fighting the GATT agreement. Said something doesn't make sense here. So we started to write editorials explaining how important it was to Iowa farmers because half of the grain that we produce is exported. So Iowa farmers in the middle of the United States are in the export business. And people just never realized that until we started writing editorials.
But the origination of us being involved was Mary's calls, individual calls. And it was because we were already a network of leaders in the Iowa universe, which, we were all working in a global sense, or certainly national, international to some extent. And so we knew the impacts, or at least we understood them from our perspective. Mary made the call to specific people because we were sort of pre-vetted in her world as people that had been proven through layers of leadership. And, our relationships all went back quite a bit from there, a couple of decades. So, and then we were mature enough to matter, I think. And she had outside conversations that were really leading to the possibilities of utilizing farmer voices, to substantially redress some of the narrative that's out there. And sadly, all these years later, those counter narratives relative to trade and many other issues in high concept government policy remain. And so you're always fighting the battles. But that explains too why you have to be continuous and professional about these things. And we were lucky enough to have enough experience and background to kind of fill that bill. And we built it out with people that were, I think, similar to us. Some of the folks on the board that came on subsequently were very much in our cohort and coming from similar backgrounds in their space. But we broadened that out quickly to a national viewpoint, and covering some gender goals as well as geographic goals. And so it was really interesting how quickly it could come together just from the one catalyst of Mary making these calls and people like us saying, sure,
Yes.
not really knowing where it might go, but we could see what we could do.
Reg hit the nail on the head. We knew it was important for it to be a farmer's voice. There's so many people in the United States and around the world do not have contact with a real farmer. So we wanted to be a farmer's voice. The other important decision I feel that we made it clear that we were doing this on a volunteer basis. We weren't getting paid. Nobody was paying us. No agriculture company was paying us. It was our own voice, our own words, and our own thoughts. And we thought that gave us some credibility.
Yeah, and we were moving into a zone that was a little different than we'd operated in because we were all associated with commodity organizations, for example, with lobbying attached and so forth. And this was more of a nonpartisan, less directed, I think.
But each one of us represented a commodity group,
Right.
that depended upon exports to have profitability.
Right.
And so it was a natural, it wasn't foreign to us. It was just something, it was an extension of where we'd already been.
Right.
But now we brought different commodity groups together, and including Craig Lang of the Farm Bureau, to start talking about the disaster that took place during that GATT talks in 1999.
So instead of, sort of going directly into the lobbying mode where you're talking to a agency or a congressperson, for example, we were talking more generally to a public, I think, and trying to target it and get it placed in, places like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times. In those days, the website placements weren't yet as important, and certainly the social media hadn't emerged to the extent. And we built a website. We did the things that were fairly conventional in that time space, and appropriate and very successful. Because here again, Mary was so well connected and understood how to flow these things through into channels that we became a communications messaging advocacy organization.
To understand how the organization came to be, it's important to highlight some of the relationships that laid its foundation. Many key players, including Mary Boot, our CEO, were already connected through their leadership roles in Iowa's agricultural commodity organizations. It was a call made by Mary following the 1999 GATT talks in Seattle that brought everyone together to take action. Recognizing the need for a strong farmer's voice in the trade conversation, this group quickly saw the importance of uniting and amplifying their message.
Well, I think it's fair to say we started out as an Iowa voice. Of course, it rapidly expanded beyond that. But we just had the feeling that most people didn't understand that Iowa agriculture is exported. And when you start to explain to people that even though the state of Iowa is in the middle of the country, half of the commodities are in the export business. And that then brought home these protests and strikes that were going on the coasts against trade. Were hurting the whole country, not just the longshoremen in Seattle.
Being in the commodity business, Bill and I were both corn, Reg cattle, that it was apparent that trade was important. But, to see where the organization went from where it started, I had the vision, Bill didn't.
Yeah. I think our viewpoint limited us somewhat in terms of where the organization could go. So we were thinking of things in those steps. Here's what we need to do. Here's what we can do. Let's go do it. And then in the process, you start to realize other possibilities because you start to understand that, yeah, you can have some impact. We would get feedback and, we started to become a source to some of the news folks and who are looking for content in and informed information and opinions. So, it's just a matter of realizing, and that's what moved us out of our parochial mindsets. And it wasn't severe because we were all operating in fully a national scope and into somewhat international as well. This has taken us all into the extremes of international organizing because now we're in 67 countries. So it's like, whoa.
In our history, though, I have to back up. Bill did have a vision. And that's how we got into technology. Well, suddenly when the GMO issues started coming up, Bill was in the forefront of that. And that led us not from just trade, it led us also into two arguments at the same time. Our work didn't diminish, it doubled. And around the world, it even became more global rather than just a United States issue.
That probably took us global as much as anything, but the trade and technology are utterly intertwined, and they were then. I mean, that was a part of the realization that...
Yeah, we were fortunate, though, that since we had leadership roles for many years in the commodity business, a lot of the media people around the state knew us, doing interviews for years. And so when they started seeing op-eds and this Truth About Trade organization, we didn't even have technology at it at that time. They started thinking, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why are you guys working together and sending this message out? And so the fact that they all knew us multiplied us very fast. And then, of course, as Reg said, when the GMO question came about, we added technology.
The Global Farmer Network has come a long way since its beginning as an Iowa-based voice. Today, the Global Farmer Network is a global group focused on agriculture, trade, and technology, with over 275 members hailing from 67 different countries. What started with a focus on export business and addressing issues like trade and technology quickly expanded into something much larger. It's a perfect example of how the vision, passion, and willingness to adapt can lead to far-reaching impacts.
The 25 years has been really great, really great.
Well, you have to wonder sometimes. You look for pivot points in your life when you get to this point and you look back and you think, wow, where would I have been if I hadn't gotten the call? Or worse yet, said, no, I don't have time. It changed my life and the trajectory of what I've been able to accomplish. I hope it's something worthwhile. It's certainly something that's felt right to me. And I know that these guys feel the same way about it. I mean, we've hung together not simply because we respect one another and like our company, which we do. It's a lot bigger than that. And, we don't operate on ego per se because, it wasn't always convenient. It certainly hasn't added to our personal bottom lines because we contribute not just the time, but some treasure into the process. And, but it was that important. And interestingly enough, I think we all come from a time and places where our families understood the importance of volunteerism, servant leadership, and it just was a camaraderie around these ideals.
It's true that the world turns on the people that show up.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot accomplished in 25 years. What's exciting, and hopefully all of us will be, to see what happens in the next 10. And, and I'm going to be here to see what it's like in 25.
Oh, I will too.
I'm not.
I cut him off.
Looking back over the past 25 years, it's hard not to reflect on how pivotal moments shaped where the organization is at today. The journey wasn't always easy, but the sense of purpose and the values that the organization was founded on, volunteerism, servant leadership, and a deep commitment to agriculture, have kept it together all these years later. And now, as we celebrate a quarter century of work, we look to the future with excitement and optimism about the next chapter.
Why do I keep supporting the GFN? Is that the question? Because of its mission, because of what it has accomplished, because of what it is accomplishing, because of what its potential is, and the fact that when I talk to our membership from around the world, it's stunning what I can learn, the challenges they face, the things they have to do differently that I just would never have ever had to experience in my farming operation.
Yeah, I think each of us are humbled by the amount of knowledge we've been able to acquire by being involved. It's not transactional, but I mean, there's been more come back to me than I've ever given in this.
Yeah, that's right. Probably the most rewarding thing that I've experienced is observing the roundtables where a farmer from Philippines is talking to someone from Germany, telling about what they did in their community, in their country. And the other farmer responds, "Whoa, I like that idea." You know, that's rewarding. They're going to go home and try it, see if they can make it work. And that's the good that these global roundtables have done. And we've sponsored so many of them now. And the people keep in contact with each other. They keep bouncing ideas off each other. They keep asking for advice. And it's just been amazing. It's just absolutely amazing.
We realize that we've created a gathering point that's global in nature, and people are able to, it's a safe place. It's a place where they can feel validated and gain confidence. And I don't know, there's just magic in it. I was just thinking, we would sit around and enjoying a beverage and, get very wise and start speaking in sage tones and all of this kind of thing. But it actually didn't come together quite like that.
I've seen Bill speak in tongues or heard it.
Well, yeah.
But I got all the snakes out of the county. I would like to think we gave it a base that allowed it to create legs that can keep going. And it will, because it's a need.
Yeah, it's been a goal of mine that it, in some form or fashion, it becomes self-perpetuating because it's just so compelling. We get it to that point at least. And we're all looking at transitioning and, changing the look of the board and bringing on new members that are probably generally younger than us, because almost everyone is, and at least in my case. And I believe we've created an organization it's a learning machine because of all of the knowledge transfer that goes on. Not only what we're trying to do to external audiences, but we talk to one another, and it supports production agriculture in ways that, it's very difficult for the standard institutions to do, because it's really person to person, and it goes to the depths of leadership around the world in developed or underdeveloped nations, and quite unique. So there's a legacy there that I think we can feel pretty good about, and I think it's going to be in safe hands.
An organization that has no other, like no other, doing like no other, exists like no other.
Yeah.
And food production it's interesting to me to go to countries where I don't speak the language and they don't speak English, but two farmers can communicate unbelievably well without understanding each other's language, with motions and pointing and doing pictures in the air brushes. And it's amazing how much you can communicate back and forth. And it's a brotherhood of food producers.
Well, it's the magic of having a common purpose, no matter what your scale is or where you're at you can be very early in your career. You're idealistic, you got no money, you're a little slightly desperate, all these things, but we've got members that might fit that description who are utterly enthusiastic. They've got more energy than, just like I was back then. I had more energy than sense probably a lot of times, but you learn what you need to learn, and we need that kind of enthusiasm because that's the future. We represent a different picture of how agriculture was. What we've seen in the arc of 25 years in technical change in our world.
I can remember when Bill had to drive his own tractor.
Yeah.
Now he wouldn't know how to drive one.
It's clear that the past 25 years have created a lasting legacy of support, knowledge sharing, and unity within the Global Farmer Network. From the global roundtables that bring farmers together to the practical advice that transcends borders, this organization has made a profound impact, and we can't wait to see what the next 25 years will bring. If you're interested in learning more about the Global Farmer Network's mission and its members, seeing some of the things the organization is up to, and finding out how you can get involved, please visit globalfarmernetwork.org. And if you'd like to support the Global Farmer Network through a donation, you can do so at globalfarmernetwork.org/donate. If you enjoyed the podcast today, be sure to subscribe and follow the Global Farmer Network on social media so we can celebrate 25 years with all of you. You can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Delaney Howell, and this has been the Global Farmer Voices podcast.